Welcome to the Global Medical Device Podcast, where today's brightest minds in the medical device industry go to get their most useful and actionable insider knowledge direct from some of the world's leading medical device experts and companies.
Most days I feel like I have the best job in the world, such a lucky, fortunate person to get to do what I do. And today is one of those examples where I got to hear a story about a company that's doing some amazing things, especially in this current COVID-19 situation. Their technology is making a difference. So enjoy this special episode of the Global Medical Device Podcast, where I talked to some folks from a company called Surfacide, and they use UVC technology to help kill viruses and bugs and really nasty stuff, including COVID-19. So enjoy this episode of the Global Medical Device Podcast. Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of the Global Medical Device Podcast. This is your host, the founder and VP of Quality and Regulatory at Greenlight Guru, Jon Speer. And joining me today are a couple gentlemen that work for a company that's actually helping humanity right now. Well, did before, but now in a big way with COVID-19 happening. So joining me is Jeff Veenhuis, President and CEO of Surfacide, and his colleague, Quinn Leach. Quinn is the Director of Quality and Compliance at Surfacide. So gentlemen, welcome to the Global Medical Device Podcast.
Thanks for having us, John. Appreciate the chance.
Sure. I think a good place to start is let's give the listeners a little bit of background on Surfacide and a little bit about your products and what you do and that sort of thing. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, happy to. Surfacide, we've been a commercial company for just over 5 years, and we manufacture and sell around the world a multiple emitter UVC disinfection system. So what we do is we actually try and leverage technology and then use the laws of physics to deliver energy into healthcare spaces that can make them safer. We happen to use UVC energy, which the best and biggest UVC emitter ever is the sun up in the sky, and that delivers UVA, UVB, and UVC. We all know UVA and B. We get our sun tans and we feel the heat from that. But the ozone layer blocks out the UVC. So no living organism has prior exposure to UVC. What it happens to do is it actually in high dose, especially within some of the narrow bandwidths of that energy range, it can damage the genetic material. It actually breaks apart the protein bonds right down to a genetic level. Every living organism, and what we're targeting are the pathogenic microorganisms in a hospital setting. So many before, SARS-CoV-2 or what we know as COVID knew about MRSA, or maybe some have heard about Clostridium difficile. Those were our previous and still are and remain our target organisms. These multi-drug resistant organisms affect 5 to 15% of patients in a hospital, depending on where you are in the world. And many of them account for a lot of inefficiency and additional cost and honestly, mortality. And so now recently we have learned about the general consumer has heard about the environment being a vector for transmission of these infections. That's been our world for the last 5 years. We try and make a patient room, an operating room, an ICU bay, an emergency room, a safer place so that the previous occupant or people in that room that may have infection or may be colonized don't pass it to those at risk.
Very cool. And you said you've been around for 5 years. I mean, your products have been in use now for quite a few years too, right?
Yeah, we've just grown a lot in the last 1 or 2 years. So Gunnar Lislow is the founder, and he kind of did some research, and there were a couple of what we call the first generation technologies, and they were single emitters that you'd wheel into the room and you'd either run it for a long time or you'd have to move them from point to point. The way I like to put it is they did have a mobile phone. We just happened to bring out a multiple emitter smartphone. So we had the ability to see what they did, where they did things well, and what there was room for improvement for. There were a few years of R&D, and then we commercially launched. And what we do is we put 3 emitters or energy sources in the room, and they're smart. They're like mini, basically towers that are computers, and we use a tablet to connect via Bluetooth. We measure each individual room or space with a laser mapping. Takes about 20 seconds, and then our algorithm actually ensures proper delivery of an adequate dose for germicidal effect. And because we have 3, we can triangulate all of the positions within that room. We're delivering energy from 3 points rather from 1 fixed point, so we can minimize shadows. And we can leverage the laws of physics by having closer proximity to more of those high-touch surfaces. It's like having a lighthouse right in your backyard instead of a mile away. We have 3 of them, so it's higher intensity, and we're minimizing the shadows. And we started commercial launch just over 5 years ago. We're now in 300 plus U.S. hospitals, many with multiple systems, and we're in places like the U.K. We're working in Turkey with the Ministry of Health there. We're working in the UAE. We happen to, and this is very pertinent, we've shipped about 35 systems to Saudi Arabia. And while coronavirus was nothing on the tips of our tongue, a couple months ago, we were dealing with coronavirus there. A few years ago, they had what is called the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS, and it was pretty well isolated to the Middle East and the GCC countries, but we knew that possibly had the risk of spreading. And as we entered the Saudi market, we like doing so on the shoulders of evidence and data. We hope we can market our product well, but much of UVC prior to Surfacide was a little bit snake oil and was very intensive marketing. It was a little bit of a race for time and a little bit of, it wasn't standardized, let's say. We like doing so with good principles of evidence and data. What do the peer-reviewed literature say, and how can we have scientists validate what we do rather than just what sounds good on a brochure or a YouTube video? And so we had the University of Iowa study our effectiveness against the MERS coronavirus, and we were a little bit shocked at how easily eradicated that coronavirus was. At a distance of 4 feet for a time of 5 minutes, we delivered enough energy. And the way we measure kind of eradication is on a logarithmic scale. And we delivered a 6-log reduction to the MERS coronavirus. That means that 99.9999, 4 nines plus the first 2 nines, 6-log reduction. It's virtual eradication of all of that coronavirus. And so we know that this SARS-CoV-2 is got a composition very similar to the MERS. So we can speak to and have great confidence, and we're the only ones in UVC with coronavirus data and evidence.
Wow.
So we're being used in surge centers. We're being used in ICUs. We're being used in ERs. And there's a novel use recently about the much and highly publicized shortage of PPE, and in particular the N95 masks. So some pretty creative researchers in Nebraska 2 weeks ago today, put out, and there was a JAMA chat room that started talking about how could we use UVC to disinfect these masks and do a limited number of reprocessings. So we're still in our earliest research. We know what energy kills bugs, but we've never before had to do a filtered face piece respirator or that material. So we're still learning about that, and we're trying to err on the side of caution. FDA, CDC, and NIOSH and others are coming out with positions, and we value compliance. And that's probably a good lead into how we got connected with you, Jon, at Greenlight Guru. We we want to do things at a high level. Even though we're still a small company, we think we want to be relied upon and do things to the level of, or highest level we possibly can. My heritage comes out of Medtronic. I spent a lot of years there. I wish we had their budgets, but at least we have their know-how a little bit, and they are known for doing things at the highest level. And we want to take and incorporate those practices, including our QMS. And that's why a year or two ago, we sought out and hired Quinn. That's why he did a full kind of evaluation of all of the automated kind of QMS tools. And we said, you know what, 13485 and CFR 820 are great QMSs, whether we ever do an EUA or a de novo or a 510K in our company's history. These are great quality programs, and we're going to implement that as our QMS. And it may lead to leveraging future potentials in a regulatory or compliant world for UVC.
I think the biggest thing that we look to Greenlight Guru for is just the scalability as we move forward. I mean, we're starting to see our sales expand globally. And if we tried to implement a paper system, we would never get there. And in fact, I did try to start a little bit of a paper system. We tried to start a little bit of a paper system. And we found that there was just no way it was going to happen. So we've been into Greenlight Guru for about 5 months, and it's really starting to take with our 35 employees or so. And it's really working out for us.
No, I'm thrilled to hear that. And thanks for sharing that. And Quinn, Jeff, I know that the Greenlight team is really enjoying our partnership with Surfacide, and I was thrilled to hear a little bit more about your company a few weeks ago. And I think Quinn and Taylor Brown on my team had a conversation and shared a little bit about what was going on. I'm like, I got to talk to these guys. I got to learn what they're doing. And folks listening, I encourage you to go to the Surfacide website. It's surfacide.com. And there's some really cool videos. You can get a really good feel for how this product works. It's really fascinating, but yeah, you know, I'm not trying to trivialize it. It's also very simplistic in what it does. I mean, and I know there's a lot of science, a lot of physics that are going into this, but it seems pretty novel and simple at the same time to be able to set up your products, you know, in a room or in a space, and they do magic work of killing these terrible bugs and viruses. So, you know, I really applaud the effort. I want to remind everybody too listening, I am talking with Jeff Veenhuis and Quinn Leach from Surfacide. So, Jeff, you alluded to it a little bit, and it's almost like you had a precursor a few years ago in Saudi Arabia with the MERS, and I kind of picked up there on the tail end as well that seems like you've had a lot of interest in, you know, researchers in Nebraska and so on really exploring other ways to use your technology to help with the COVID-19 situation. I see your product, I'm like, could I get one of these in my house, or could I put one of these in the grocery store? I mean, have you had any people reach out to you for things like that?
We have had, and so I guess right now, at least heretofore, we've really kept a focus on the healthcare space. And we know that's where people are at risk, and we know that's where we can both keep the workers safe as well as keep that next patient safer. That's our goal, or at least help provide a safer environment by eliminating the potential or the number of organisms, what we call the bioburden, to make it a safer spot. Clearly, public places and stores and others are, people's homes are. As we ramp up and as we continue our R&D, we probably will look to provide a little bit more consumerist need product, but our price point is probably a little bit too high right now, and it's because of our scalability, economies of scale, and we're still very early on. But we would love to do so, and we can look to our data from our customers. I mentioned our data and evidence reliance, so we've seen customers exceed 50, 60% reduction in hospital-acquired infections in year one. And so while that happens to translate to a business outcome for the hospitals, and under the Affordable Care Act, there are actually penalties to their Medicare reimbursement when they fall in that bottom tier against their peers, we like to think of it as the societal benefit. We need to keep the lights on and have a sustainable business, but we're saving literally or helping our hospitals to avoid tons of mortality, tens and tens of thousands of people. And so our solution is probably a highly developed world solution today, but as we go forward, we'd love to do that in the emerging and developing world and find a way, not just maybe with UV, but to start with UVC, to make smaller, rural, all over kind of the developing world, and call it that middle third of hospitals globally, access better infection prevention standards.
Yeah, no, it's really, really intriguing, and excited to see, those things unfold in your future, and thrilled that we have a small part in at Greenlight Guru and being connected to what you guys are doing, at least somewhat tangentially, from a QMS perspective. Quinn,
well, I can tell you, John, too, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, go ahead.
Here's how Greenlight Guru is helping with COVID. So we probably have sold more in the last 2 weeks than we sold in the previous year. Well, I know we have considerably more. So we're ramping up, and we're obviously increasing and boosting our production. But a couple of our key suppliers, we had to put in huge bulk orders to get access to those parts. And we tried to do so and get out in front of that early, so they knew, hey, don't worry, don't shut down amidst this crisis. We're going to rely on you for components and bill of material. But we're ramping up so fast, we needed to rely on a few outsourced sub-assemblers and other production capacity to then feed our team so we can do more with the time we have, with the people and the know-how we have. If it weren't for our QMS and Greenlight Guru, it probably would take us a month or two, maybe even more, Quinn, right? But because of all of our instructions and everything at our fingertips, we are instantly mobile to go with our drawings and our specs and everything needed to do it at our high quality level in a highly technical product. And we're going to ramp from 0 to 60 or more miles per hour in about a 3 to 4 week process. And Greenlight Guru helps to facilitate that.
Wow, I appreciate that.
And I'd just add that the added functionality and change management within the workspace really helps to just streamline any changes that we do need to make. We've been really, over the course of late February and March, we got all of our production instructions reviewed, released, controlled in Greenlight Guru, and access to the key suppliers that will be building our subs. It's just really been something that, looking back on it, I'm not quite sure how long it would have taken or how successful we would have been. So it's been real positive.
Well, time is of the essence. We're being very careful to market, to sell for these, but our existing customer base, many of them are still doing what I call the classic utilization of Surfacide. They're disinfecting spaces and hard surfaces. The FDA actually issued an EUA, or a guidance, that an enforcement policy is actually what it's called, to allow for those disinfection modalities widespread. And then now more and more of our customers are looking to keep their workers safe and keep them armed with N95s. And so we take that responsibility, or small little part, and we want to just do so relied upon data, but we want to be able to provide good specs and good energy delivery specifications. And so we're playing a part at our customer base in keeping their workers safer, so that they can maybe, as everybody hears, flatten that curve and stay there at work and on the front lines in the war against COVID. We need our healthcare workers. So I would say it's one of the kind of focal shifts for Surfacide. We previously were keeping patients safer and that next occupant. We're still doing that. And we want to make that hospital safer for anybody that has to go there. But right now, we got to keep our healthcare workers safe. And they're the ones that are going to help us get through this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's really awesome. I mean, it's as I'm hearing you share your story and the things that you're doing, I love it because our mission at Greenlight Guru is to improve the quality of life. And it's very clear that Surfacide is all about that mission, improving the quality of life. And really, thank you so much for sharing so much more about your technology, what you're doing, how things are going. I guess to kind of wrap things up today, I'll leave it a little bit open-ended, but do you have any tips or advice for others? And is there anything that I or Greenlight or the medical device community can do to help Surfacide in this time of need?
Well, I mean, obviously, we want the world back and restored. So I think while we have been in this little world of infectious disease or infection control, those like Dr. Fauci and some of the other experts, and I know quarantining sucks and it's just so intrusive, especially into our kind of, we value as Americans our independent spirit and ability to come and go as we please. But these quarantines and others, being careful, using gloves, using masks, using good infection prevention strategies, even in your home. I mean, my girlfriend wipes down our groceries and has a clean zone and a dirty zone. That reminds me of, this aseptic technique in the OR that I've been for years and years, things we would never have dreamed of. But the more we prevent it from coming to us, the more we can prevent it going to others. And we happen to run a Surfacide cycle. We have a little bit of a benefit in every office every night. So we know when I come into my desk, we have a disinfected space every day, and we want to keep our workers safe so we can do our job to fulfill our mission of making the world safer.
Yeah, awesome. Quinn, any parting thoughts that you'd like to share?
You mentioned your mission, and I've heard it several times since I've been here with respect to our mission. We're looking to make healthcare environments safer. And I think all that we could really ask is our continued partnership with our suppliers, really to just keep us in production, keep us abreast of their situation such that we can help to see around our corners and at least be there for our customers and potential customers without any undue delay. So I guess that's just kind of what I'd close with.
All right. Well, Jeff, Quinn, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules to share a little bit more about the Surfacide story.
Thank you, Jon.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And folks, again, that was Jeff Veenhuis, President and CEO, and Quinn Leach, Director of Quality and Compliance from Surfacide. You need to check out what they're doing. Go to surfacide.com. And really cool technology, really making a difference in the world. So do check that out. And if you have a story that you want to share with me and with Greenlight and with the medical device community about some positive things that are happening, reach out to me. Let me know. I'd love to have a conversation with you and maybe get you as a guest on the Global Medical Device Podcast as well. And certainly, I appreciate the sentiments that Quinn and Jeff shared about their experience with Greenlight, especially and their ability to quickly ramp from 0 to 60 very, very quickly. We're trying to help all of our customers do that exact same thing. So, if you're looking for someone to help, especially when it comes to your quality management system, reach out to us, www.greenlight.guru. We have the only medical device QMS system on the world today, and it's cloud-based, and all of our customers, especially in this time of quarantine, are seeing so much added benefit to being able to keep their businesses going because we're all trying to improve the quality of life. So let me know how we can help, and please go to the website if you'd like to learn more about how that might happen. So again, thank you for listening. Spread the word about the Global Medical Device Podcast. Share this episode with your friends, colleagues, coworkers, etc. So thank you so much. As always, this is your host, founder, and VP of Quality and Regulatory at Greenlight Guru, Jon Speer, and you have been listening to the Global Medical Device Podcast.